This is the flash on my phone, and this is a flash game. Flash games were this beautiful thing created by God on the 7th day of the Bible when he said, "Let there be flash games." It was awesome because for the most part they were free and just about any computer could run them as long as it had an internet connection. In fact, I'm pretty sure that they actually ran better on the $5 ThinkPads that they had in school. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory.
Flash games are but a forgotten fossil by now, but they hold a special place in the hearts of those of us who played them growing up. And today I'd like to reminisce over a few of these Flash games, starting with... You might know the wildly popular Bloons Tower Defense series, which itself actually started out as a Flash game, but before even that, the series started out as another Flash game simply called Bloons. In this game, you play as a monkey who is stuck in the sky and passes the time by popping every balloon in sight, using the darts that I can only assume he stole from the bar last night.
Yup, he's a heavy drinker, this one. I mean, how else do you think he got up here?
If you're able to pop the target number of balloons on screen using the given number of darts, you move on to the next stage. And as you progress further through the game, new obstacles get added. Cinder blocks block your path, bouncy blocks ricochet your darts in different directions, ceramic blocks will stop your darts in their tracks, but break after getting hit. Special balloons will also get introduced as you progress, tack balloons that shoot tacks around them when popped, bomb balloons which for all intents and purposes do the same thing as the tack balloons except your dart is taken with the explosion, spike ball balloons that drop spike balls when hit, frozen balloons that freeze any balloons in the vicinity, rendering them unpoppable, but also bouncy, and even a Pac-Man balloon that lets you play as a balloon eating Pac-Man for several seconds. All of these different elements are combined in fun and surprisingly creative ways. Like in one level, you have to pop these frozen balloons so that you can bounce your dart to a walled off group of balloons. Or at least that's what you're supposed to have to do. It was easier for me to just try to get the perfect angle on the group rather than having to deal with all the bouncing. Seriously, good luck on any levels where you have to bounce your dart. Most of the time, it works well enough, but other times, this is the level you're playing. There's no way to calculate something like this. You can do your best, but you're dealing with so many bounces, and sometimes your dart looks like it should bounce straight ahead just for it to get sent in some other direction. But other than that, this game is great. It was a simple, challenging way for 5-year-old me to pass the time, and it's super fascinating to see the groundwork laid for the Bloons franchise that we know today. So how did all that groundwork carry into the sequel Bloons 2? Oh god, my eyes!
I didn't actually play Happy Wheels that much. You're in 3rd grade, and it's an exciting day because you just walked into class and your teacher hits you with those beautiful words that you only get to hear a few times every year.
I love you. Okay class, today we're going to the computer lab.
The class forms its line of booger-eating 9-year-olds and you're all just foaming at the mouth waiting to get your hands on a keyboard. You guys go to the computer lab and, I don't know, make a PowerPoint about your favorite bird or something. My favorite birds are eagles. You finish your project in like 5 minutes because you're in 3rd grade. You don't want to spend your day looking at pictures of birds and facts about birds. You want to play cool math games.
Cool Math was the site for Flash gaming in school, mostly because every other site was blocked. There are tons and tons of games on this site, most of them a lot less math related than you're led to believe. There's a million Flash games on the site we could pick from to talk about today. Run! I don't know if this was the case for anyone else, but I remember this game had an infectious quality about it where everyone would end up playing it if we had any free time on the computers. It didn't matter if you started with a different game. If one person in the class started playing Run, then their computer neighbor would look over, see it, and go, "Oh my god, are you playing Run? I am so much better at that game than you. Let me play it." And then their neighbor would do the same thing, and soon enough, half the class was playing it. The game is simple. You play this round gray alien running through a tube, trying to avoid falling into the abyss of space. It gets harder over time by introducing more gaps in the path, and you have to avoid them, of course, by going around them or jumping over them. But there's also this cool mechanic where you can run into the walls and rotate the world to take a different path. It's genuinely good fun, and the effect of rotating the world was flashy enough to keep my tiny child brain's attention. There's also a sequel to the game, aptly named Run 2, where the world is made out of rectangular prisms instead of squares. In this one, you also get to pick a character at the beginning, a skater skater who moves faster but is harder to control, or the runner who controls the same as in the first game. Run 2 is actually really cool. The prisms make the levels so much more interesting and dynamic, and the speed and more difficult movements of the skater give the game the extra difficulty boost that I think it needed. But of course, you can always fall back on the original character if you prefer to play that way. But wait, there was even a sequel to the sequel. I didn't even know Run 3 existed until I started making this video. This one has a whopping 9 characters to unlock and choose from. I didn't get far enough to know what they all do, but they're there. Interestingly enough, this game goes back to the gameplay style of the first Run, where you're running through a tunnel avoiding pitfalls. But this time there's falling platforms, and get this, the tunnel can also have more than 4 sides. Whoa, almost circle. Oh, and something else this game has that I never saw coming: cutscenes! Out of the 3 games, I think my favorite is easily the second one. The first one is fine enough fun, but the second game being set on these prisms as opposed to just a straightforward tunnel, as well as being able to play as the skater, gives it a much needed extra dimension and challenge. Meanwhile, the third one, I don't know, it's just kind of a slightly better version of the first one. Or it would be if the movement itself didn't feel clunkier than the first. I don't know if it's because after Flash went away, the first game was better reworked, or if I'm just so used to the first game that the third one feels weird, or maybe I'm just overanalyzing this altogether.
Maybe I'm just overanalyzing this.
I just don't like the way it plays. The character is too floaty, and the presentation of the entire thing somehow feels cheaper than the previous games, which is weird because it's a freaking Flash game. I hate to say it too, because the cutscenes really immersed me in the story of the game.
Have you ever looked at a porta potty and thought to yourself, you know what? This would make a great car. Let's drive it off a cliff. That is the premise of Potty Racers.
You play as an unnamed stick person with surprisingly luscious hair and drive a porta potty off of a cliff to get the most height and distance you can. You can upgrade your porta car to make it go even higher and further with things like better wheels, more efficient exhaust, or even giving it fuel in order to boost yourself higher into the air. As you go higher, your porta potty will take you through all the layers of the atmosphere, into space, through the time continuum, and eventually into the endless void of nothingness. You can also buy yourself tricks to get yourself extra points for some extra money, but I mostly found that these get you into more trouble than they're worth. There are multiple maps to this game as well, which I completely forgot about while getting footage for this game. You start off on this grass hill, and you're supposed to move through the levels as you unlock them by hitting certain height and distance goals. You get to go to an urban road, then a beach, and finally an even more urban road. But I ended up getting all of the upgrades just playing on the first map, and by that time the other maps were redundant. Potty Racers is a simple game with a lot of potential. Perhaps too much potential. So like the other great Flash games we've looked at today, it got a sequel in the form of Potty Racers 2.
The first one was fine, but the sequel takes its premise to the next level.
This time, instead of turning your porta potty into a car, you manufacture it into a plane. The premise is still the same. You launch your porta potty off of the hill and try to get as much height and distance as you can.
Oh hey, look, it's Superman. Oh, and I guess Goku's here too.
But this time you're flying over water, trying to reach a certain distance where there's ground for you to land your porta potty on. But if you don't make it that far, beware! This time around, you also have more upgrades to choose from, including more speed, a smoother decline. Trust me, you'll want this one right away. The ride starts out pretty bumpy. And of course, fuel for your plane and the parts. You start out building a pretty basic plane, reminiscent of early plane designs. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's historically accurate to what Wilbur and Orville invented. Once you complete your plane and safely land it, you then get the opportunity to move on to the next map, where you get to build a bigger, even better porta-plane until you finally accumulate enough resources to go to space. Potty Racers 2 is a fairly short experience, but so much fun. It took everything I loved about the first game and improved every aspect of it. Cooler upgrades, better established goals to reach, and a significantly more coherent sense of progression. I actually got to experience off the maps this time. So why stop there? We're gonna keep riding the success train, which also happens to be made out of a porta potty. If the second game improved so much over the first one, the third one has to be even better. Potty Racers 3. This one's a mess. There are a ton more upgrades you can get in this game, which is great, but consequently the menu is a little disorientating to navigate. I don't know, maybe this makes sense to you, but compared to the simple UI of the first two games, this is just too much. Gameplay wise, once again, it's the same. You start out at the top of the hill, per usual. Okay, everything looks normal so far. You run down, launch, and holy mother of George Harding, inventor of the modern porta potty. That's right, this time you have collectibles you can grab while flying, including stars for experience points to level up and unlock more upgrades, golden toilets that give you extra cash, and fireballs to send you flying even further. Yeah, I don't really like this one. Between the menus and the collectibles, there's always just too much going on screen, including this losing oxygen warning that never went away during my entire playthrough. It wasn't even supposed to start appearing until I reached Mars.
Oh yeah, this one takes place in space. There's some thinly strung together plot about how your stick man wants to ride his porta potty to Uranus, but I didn't get to see all that unfold because halfway through my game glitched and it thought I already bought the moonwalk when I definitely didn't, and so I couldn't reach my goal of moonwalking 3 times as I flew away from Mars, thus halting my progression.
At least the ships you get to build along the way are pretty cool. Where Potty Racers 2 feels like an improvement over its predecessor, Potty Racers 3 just feels like it added more to its predecessor. But despite its shortcomings, this trilogy is responsible for a lot of fond childhood memories. I remember pouring hours into these games growing up, replaying them over and over, and always being enamored every time I got every upgrade for my porta potty and sticking that last landing. So those were some of the Flash games that I and perhaps you played growing up. And what did we learn from this discussion? Well, 2 out of every 3 Flash games have a great sequel, and 2 out of 2 sequels have not so great sequels. We also learned that the games we play don't necessarily have to be these grand adventures for them to be just as fun or just as meaningful. Clearly, Bloons, Run, and Potty Racers aren't nearly as intricate or well produced as the actual video games that little Zesty used to play, but the memories of them are just as fond. Anyway, that wraps this up for me. I would love to hear about some of the Flash games you used to play growing up, so let me know about some of your favorites in the comments below. I would also like to note that these aren't the only Flash games I used to play, so if you enjoyed this video, make sure you let me know with a like or a comment, and maybe I'll make another one about some other Flash games. In the meantime, I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your life, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.